tournament. But now we're moving on to that PVZ, where Trap has also been called the best in this matchup, and I think he is. But this guy in the bottom left is pretty darn good himself. He is the blue Zerg for Team Clash. He's Reynor.
And spawning over in the northeast side of Oxide as our red Protoss, and for Team Africa Freaks, it is Trap. I'm genuinely curious how this one's going to go, you know, because I know Reynor has been a little bit vocal about how he feels about things like Void Rays and stuff, and yeah, Trap is definitely not the kind of guy to steer away from what works, and given how vocal Reynor was about those kind of weaknesses of his, potentially, like that must have been heard down the grapevine by a guy like Trap, right?
You'd think so. You know, at a point maybe in StarCraft 2's history 5-6 years ago, the Koreans hearing about what the non-Koreans were doing, maybe not as much, right? But nowadays, they all recognize each other as threats and should be definitely talking to people and saying, hey, what does Reynor think about this? Okay, Reynor hates it. All right, that's exactly what I'm going to do. Not to mention that Trap has just been practicing with the style in general, as many Protosses have. It's been a couple months since their grand final appearance against each other. In fact, that was back in September, so the meta has changed. But they recently fought even just a month ago, where Reynor also took the victory. So actually, just as history goes, Reynor is the favored one right now.
Yeah, and if Trap does go 0-2 in this group, like that's already incredibly tough to come back from, because his next opponents, they don't get much easier. Zest is always very good in PvP. Estrella beating Zest in PvP as well, and then Dream to finish things off. This is actually a really tough group to get out of.
Yeah, yes, it is. It is. I mean, most people kind of just gave, I think, Trap and Reynor, both of them, the go-ahead, right? Like, those are pretty, you know, safe picks for this group, and then maybe third could get a little weird, especially since Hero Marine has grabbed that first victory. But to say that Trap could potentially fall out, I mean, is a little ahead of ourselves, first of all, but then also just is something that we didn't really expect to have to even consider. We've started this PVZ off with some normal stuff here. We got a Stargate coming down. No surprises there, guys. PVZ has always been very Stargate-centric. Well, aside from last Katowice, I suppose, when Adepts were all the rage. But yeah, we've been back to the Stargate, and specifically the double Stargates, which, I mean, I expect to see here on Oxide.
Oh, yeah, certainly. I mean, Oxide, like, I don't know whose map pick this was in this series between them, but in PvZ, it's one of those all-roundy maps, I do feel. Like, Trap, he went for the hatchery block at the start, didn't follow it up with a Twilight Council immediately, and that's kind of what we saw for a lot of last year. But yeah, he's going for the Stargate opening, he's getting a few more gateways down. This just looks like it's opening for a very generic but nice PvZ here. And the Void Ray getting chrono boosted, and Reynor's going to scout it pretty much immediately as well.
Yes, he is. Overlord already darting in. Now, Reynor, like, it feels like a lot of Zergs were starting, maybe like intentionally kind of starting a rumor, I'm not sure, to get in the Protoss's head. But it felt like there was just like rumors going around that the Zerg players had figured something out. And then it was clarified, you know, Lamb did an interview with Team Liquid and all that, and saying like, well, you know, people have their individual responses. You know, I don't know if it's really super figured out. Reynor was one of those guys who apparently on stream was kind of, you know, being cheeky, because that's honestly how Reynor is, saying that he had a plan. He has a way of defeating it. And then that was around the time that he actually got defeated, or he didn't get defeated. He got a very close best-of-5 series versus Neep in one of those open cups, which ended up being a 3-2 victory for Reynor. But it was actually closer than I expected, considering that Reynor seems, well, he always seems so confident in the matchup against that Void Ray stuff. But that might have just been him warming up, practicing, experimenting, getting ready for this tournament where everyone's eyes were for the past month, multiple months, honestly. It's all about Katowice, and it's all about this best-of-3 right now.
It certainly is. It certainly is. Talking about Reynor's cockiness, by the way, I remember it was late at one of the events, right? It was one of these after-party situations, and I remember Reynor, he was feeling cocky as, and he started talking about, Ben, like, I've got a new strategy against Terran. And mind you, like, this strategy had been around for a long time. But he's like, I'm going to make nothing but Lings and Banes. What do you think about it? I'm like, Reynor, that's been around for a long time now. Like, I remember Stefano first doing that and beating people. He was like, no, I'm going to do it different. I'm like, how? And he's like, I'm going to make more Lings and Banes. So I don't trust him when it comes down to him talking about his new stuff, but we'll see. We'll see what he brings to the table, because there's one thing that you cannot argue about when it comes to Reynor is he's incredibly good at this video game, and his mechanics are top-notch.
That's absolutely true. Trap, while we were talking here, not actually adding on the second Stargate, so a lot of talk about something that we're actually not going to see, going instead into what would be declared as kind of the normal list ZVP possible, which is right into that charge +1. Templar Archives coming down as well. That's a lot of gateways coming down with it, and we still don't have, we don't have very fast gases on that third base, so maybe Trap will even also kind of poke forward a little bit, see what's up with Reynor's defenses. Reynor went for a very safe Roach Warren timing, but is not bothered to make units, as he had gotten that Overlord Scout in, figured that even if it was going to be a second Stargate, it's not something that Roaches actually would help with, and is droned up to 66 now, actually getting a Nidus Swarm. Well, he's about to make some Roaches alongside some more Queens.
Yeah, a lot of Roaches, a lot of Queens. And like I've been looking at that production tab, it's been nothing but Queens, like 3 at a time. That's obviously the maximum that you can make right now with his 3 bases, but that count is going to be getting pretty damn high. And even though the emphasis on air hasn't been truly mental or anything, having Queens in your opponent's face along with a bunch of Roaches and Ravagers, it's actually going to be really hard for Trap to hold this off, I think.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Trap now grabbing his gases at the third, is doing a little bit of a poke forward, maybe just looking for an Overlord, but soon enough he's going to have to do nothing but defend around that third base. The first Nidus Swarm is already on the way. When the Scream alerts Trap, that's when he'll feel very afraid. It looks like the Oracle has seen the Queens and the Nidus Swarm, in fact. So the shield batteries, they're coming down. Cannons as well, trying to chrono up that +1. Trap is almost as ready as he'll ever be. When the SAC defense is done, a couple more Warpins, he will have a solid army himself.
Yeah, I mean, Trap is doing everything he can, right? He's producing a lot of static defense, which is great. Cannon, shield batteries combined. He has to hold on. Holy crap at the amount of Queens that turned up his front door. Nice force fields to start things off, and he does shave off. No, he doesn't. The Queens are kept alive by the transfusers. Great play by Reynor, keeping those alive.
This is it's just so many Queens. Good God. The Zealots do finally get on top, and there's the activation on the overcharge for the shield battery. Is it really going to be enough, though? Trap starting to push through. The transfuses are almost entirely gone for those Queens, and they're finally starting to fall. The Archon's getting in there as well, and the Zealots starting to actually encompass the Zerg army are wisely pulled back as Trap just waits for another round of reinforcements.
I am so surprised that Zerg army melted in the way that it did, but that battery overcharge, it was the one that was furthest away, just out of range, and Trap handled that about as beautifully as you can, I think. And this game is going to start looking very rough for Reynor, because he had no longevity into this game. Like, his drone count was at 66. Now you see he's producing a lot of drones. Roach speed only just starts as well, along with an Evo and a Baneling Nest and a 4th. He is in so much trouble here, Zombie Grub.
Yeah, that's not what you want to see. You don't want to go back home after a failed attack and say, well, now it's time to start Roach speed, right? Like, nah, not quite. And on top of that, of course, the Baneling is only just finishing. You won't have Baneling speed either. So in some ways, in some games, Reynor's been able to bring back his situation, such as this, by having really good surrounds with Banelings. Being able to set them up in one place and come from behind or come from the side. That's incredibly more difficult to do when they're waddlers. It's much easier when they're actually rolling around the map. So that's going to take a while, and Trap's pretty much already ready to go. I mean, he's managed to save some sentries, some Archons, the Zealots. Filling out the army are the things that are easiest to produce. Right now, he's got a lot of creep spread to clean up, and he's focusing on that while taking his 4th base.
Yeah, Trap's been evolving with his army. This is Archons, he's got Storm in the mix as well. +2 is going to finish before Zerg has even finished +1. And the High Templars, he's produced quite a few of them as well that are just building up on that energy. Even getting Blink as well behind all this. Trap, he's feeling so comfortable this game, and this Oracle's still alive and still managing to deal damage and tagging.
Very nice tag. Scream of the Nidus Swarm alerts Trap, and there is kind of an obvious place, I suppose, to check, and that is over to the right side, which it is there, but only one Roach and the Nidus Swarm will go down. And actually, it was more of a distraction than anything else, but Trap wisely having some units over to the left. Of course, all the SAC defense that was there as well is still there. So Reynor's got to break down the rocks to actually open up an opportunity for an attack that Trap might not be prepared for, but it seems like Trap is all over him.
Yeah, like Reynor, even though we had kind of a little ticket there into the natural area, maybe, it looked like Trap had an army on both sides at his third and his newly formed fourth there to get like a big concave going down. And Reynor read the situation comfortably and just said, okay, no, I'm not going to run into this. I'm going to back off. But I feel that time is really on Trap's side here. Like his army, it's still the one growing, was Reynor. The only thing he can realistically do here is produce more Banelings out of his already made Zerglings.
Yeah, I think the Banelings are got to be the way to go. Reynor has a +1 missile upgrade up against Trap's +2. Plus Trap has the Archons, a growing number of Stalkers, the High Templars still with a lot of Storms, even being ferried in the Warp Prism as you would typically see in a PvT, not PvZ, but still very, very useful. And Reynor, well, it seemed like he was setting up for an attack, building all those Banelings. Actually says, I guess I can't do that. So 5 Spine Crawlers going to finish instead. Hive on the way, double upgrades now. And then eventually, I guess he'll use some of his attacks, right, to start typing off the army supply in exchange for something better. But right now, he's stuck in an army that is supposed to shark around, look for an engagement if it's there, but then otherwise is kind of prepare almost defensively, as Trap is the one finally ready to move out.
Oh my goodness, the Storms on these Ravagers. They are juicy, juicy targets for those Storms. Nice Corrosive Bars on the right side as well, but Reynor's the one that's on the run right now.
Yeah, that's a defense happened a lot quicker than Reynor was expecting. And unfortunately already losing a good chunk of his units to all of those Storms. There's plenty of Protoss army left over. A couple of Spine Crawlers really not going to help out that much against so many Stalkers. The Corrosive Bile is desperately trying to buy some time, but there's really not much more that Reynor can do rather against Trap's army, especially as Trap just safely pulls back, uses the chokes to his advantage, takes that 4th base, and maneuvers around to the right side.
Yeah, Reynor's still maxed out, but his army, like, it's not the kind of army you want realistically, and now Trap has caught up in supply, finally. But he's approaching +3, his army's still good, it's still healthy. And remember, all that static defense that he made earlier is still going to be very useful against these run-bys, I do believe.
Yeah, I think so. Extremely useful. There's one run-by, and that's it. Good Storm in the heart of the army. A second Storm, a third Storm coming down. An aggressive blink forward as Trap realizes this is his moment. This is his time. And those Ravagers are starting to fall. Another aggressive blink forward as the Immortals finally come along as well. And Reynor's supply is just plummeting.
Oh, incredible play by Trap. And look, the blinks. He's just all over Reynor. 160 supply against 130. The upgrade's getting cancelled as well. And GG Trap takes a very convincing game 1, honestly.
Yeah, that was brilliant Protoss play against an aggressive Zerg player, waiting calmly, detecting what his opponent was doing, getting the stack defense up in time to support his charge on Archon army. Excellent stuff there from Trap, what we would expect to see. On Reynor's side of things, you know, he can be a very aggressive Zerg player, so it's not unexpected that he would start off a map like that. But I was a little surprised. I mean, Muslim, do you think that maybe he was kind of auto-engaging double Void Rays, or did he actually think that would work against Trap's setup?
I think his setup was pretty good, but on hindsight, Trap made so much static defense there, and I think the positioning as well, like the force fields came in so handy. I know there's Ravagers that can get rid of them, but they're still up there for a moment in time, right? And that shield battery that was overcharged, you could not get to it at all. Even with that many Queens and that many Ravagers, their damage output, unless the bars are landing, isn't even that ridiculously high. So having like a line of Archons and Zealots just to help out with the force fields buying time continuously, I actually was thinking, with Reynor putting the Nidus where he did, I was kind of hoping that maybe he took down the rocks and then got away between the third and the natural, because I think that would have actually helped out his situation a lot. Obviously, time is of the essence, but maybe something like that would have worked out a lot better, fighting away from a shield battery overcharge.
Yeah, it is one of those conundrums, right? One of the conundrums that shield battery overcharge forces the opponents to try and decide how to actually fix it. Like, do I try to engage on the shield battery and maybe take it out as quickly as possible? Do I avoid it, but then with Queen Ravager, you know, without creep spread really able to flow that fast? Flows kind of fast, but not that fast. And I'm going to try and split this very slow-moving army. And, you know, it's a tough decision for Reynor, and unfortunately, maybe either option wasn't going to work. Maybe Trap had actually just done too good of a job macroing well, scouting well, and defending well, and then executing the rest of the game without any mistakes, too. As I know that Reynor has made comebacks, like I was saying, with those roly-poly Banelings getting in the right position. If Trap had been over-eager to counterattack, maybe that's something that Reynor could have worked with, but Trap just played it super patient, super smart.
Trap was clean. He was calculated. And, you know, there's opening as well. Like, Void into Oracle into a second Void. Like, I don't know whether that maybe confused Reynor a little bit too. Because if I'm looking at that, I look at that as quite a bit of an investment. And I know that a lot of Protosters recently have been delving into a lot of Void Rays. But obviously the switch into Charge and Archons and stuff, there is a little timing window because whenever you play StarCraft, whenever you're doing the switch of tech, that's always when you're most vulnerable. And it really did feel like 10 plus Queens and all those Ravagers was going to get the work done. But Trap, honestly, like the amount of calculations that went into holding that and as smoothly as he did, it was just phenomenal play. And this is kind of what we want to see from Trap, right? Like, he is a trendsetter. What he does is very usually the safe and standard approach. And yeah, he made it look like that strategy from Reynor isn't scary at all. But the thing is, like, that was 160, 170 supply. It's like 120, 130 or so. It was very, very scary.
It certainly is. It can be also like a multitude of things, as you were talking about. Even the direction of the attack can change up. So the fact that he dealt with it so cleanly is impressive. We move on to game number 2 on Jagannatha. In the bottom left, down 1 after a failed Nidus Worm. He is the blue Zerg, Reynor.
And spawning over in the top right-hand side as our red Protoss looking to get back into this this group stage, it is Trap.
You know, I was kind of expecting on the first map being Oxide. I was, towards the first about 4 or 5 minutes of the game, I was wondering if Reynor was going to do the Swarm Host shenanigans. That seems to have been so popular on that particular map. I know Solar was a big fan of it for, it felt like 2 months or so. But nope, already using one very aggressive tactic with a Nidus Worm. Do you think there's really a chance that Reynor does that again? Or are we going to see the macro Reynor now?
I mean, macro Reynor is always very scary, but if we go back to that interview with Kevin Rotti, and it's like, yeah, I don't know what he wanted to know what Serral was doing late game so he could kind of learn from him, right? Feeling like he doesn't really have an option in the late game. But I feel that Reynor always has an option in the late game, you know? Like, mechanically, I talked about it earlier, he's so beautifully quick. Like, he's absolutely one of the quickest players in the scene. Doing a build like that where it comes down to a timing and not really utilizing the fact that he's so good at the later aspects of the game, I hope he does resort back and utilizes the fact that this is a very large map and does something with that.
And we can't forget that Trap is also capable of doing something aggressive himself. Might have been the defender in that last game, but he can change it up. So Reynor's going to have to keep tabs on the scouting. So far, just a regular opener, blocking out that natural. Zergs have gotten very used against this one. It felt like for a while there, it was totally stylistic if the Protosses wanted to block the natural or not. And then at some point, they all agreed, nah, it's the best thing to do. Let's just all do it.
Yeah, and like for a while I saw Reynor doing like 15 hashes and stuff, like to counteract it, but this series so far, he's just been very comfortable taking the further away base, you know, as soon as he sees that probe arrive and what have you. And I guess, given that, I don't want to say Adepts are out of fashion, because Adepts are always good, but given that Stargate is definitely the flavor of at least like the last patch, I do think that taking that third base, the one that's a little bit further away, knowing that it's most likely not going to be the Adept follow-up, it's a little bit less scary for Zergs these days.
It's scary in a different way. It's scary that the late game could be coming. I don't like to play that one out. Overlord is barely saved thanks to this little pillar. The Stalker trying to push that away as far as possible, and injure it as well means that it really can't, its Suicide Scout into the main is going to see, basically nothing if it tries, unless it's very sneaky about it. Although I think actually, looking at the map, the main right now, the Stargate is just right on the edge. So the Overlord could still try.
It definitely could, but I don't know. I think that Stalker is going to wait for this Oracle to turn up. And Trap's so good at timings and things like that, that if you have your Stalker on the map, like, I'd be worried about a bunch of Lings turning up and surrounding it, right? But I think he's so smart that he kind of knows what Reynor's going for. That being said, who knows? Like, these players can, and Reynor especially, I know some people have referred to his player a little bit crazy, a little bit wild, that he could do something like that, but yeah, I'm looking forward to a proper game between them, and so far, yeah, he's going to do exactly what we talked about.
Yeah. Well, the Overlord was probably a goner, whether it was 20 seconds later when the Void Ray pops up or right then and there. Either way, of course, scouts that it is a Stargate opener, but as far as the follow-up, that could still be tricky. That's where maybe a Ling over on the third could at least give him some little bit of more information. 2 Queens at the third. Easy defense there. Spore Crawler getting put down in the natural now, I believe, and the third, not taking any chances against Trap's Micro. Still no scout in that third, but I just saw him click over there. Reynor knows what the scout.
Yeah, and I like that you pointed out that there was 2 queens at that third. Like, that was one of his bases that didn't have the Spore Crawler, so we had 2 queens positioned there. And then the Spore Crawlers go down later when the queens want to move about and spread that creep. And that's just some of the small things. By the way, these Adepts, they're on a suicide mission here, trying to utilize the fact that the queens are out and about. Oh, actually, doesn't go for it. So nice play by Trap there. But yeah, making those Spore Crawlers as late as possible just to kind of get as many minerals as quickly as possible. These are the little corners that Zergs have learned how to cut beautifully these days.
Well, it is right into that Twilight Council and Forge for Trap, who does manage to find a couple of drones before being captured by the Lings. A couple of cancels as well, having to go down for Reynor. Roachborn, very safe. Technology going down, and then yeah, I mean, you called it, you wanted it, and I think we all did at least once. One very good mid to late game PvZ, and this seems to be the one that's happening. Not a very consistent queen production this time around, just nothing but drones, and probably into that 4th base soon for Reynor as well.
This is like almost exactly the same from Trap. Like, the order of air units that he made is a bit different, right? Because it was the Void Ray first, then the Oracle kind of thing, but this time he got the Overlord low. But it's the exact same thing. And Reynor so far, like, his Roach Warren's about the same time. He's now producing quite a few queens here. I wonder, is this just going to be kind of a repeat situation?
Yeah, you know what? He does start up 3 queens again. I had maybe not given enough time, but it was around 67 drones. I did the Nidus Swarm as well. So maybe I didn't give enough time before I said, okay, macro game. Maybe not. Queen's already pushing out that creep tumor to the forward position, and yeah, there goes that Nidus Worm. He is once again building a good number of queens. The Adepts are going to get in here and actually shade in, give himself a little bit more time to see what pops out of those eggs. Unfortunately, they just only recently started. So not too much scouting going down on the man. Did they see anything in the natural?
This is so exactly the same from Trap. Like, so exactly the same. Even, like, producing the 2 Archons at the same time, like the charge and the +1 hitting. Like, Roach speed as well. It is neglected, but that's because it wouldn't come in time for this hit happening. So I do love it when players do the same thing again, just so we can see what they'll change where they felt it went wrong, right? So, like, is Reynor just going to go gung-ho in the natural in the third? Like, where's he going to go with this?
Well, right now, just kind of far away. The Oracle sharking around for that Nidus Worm, and it's going to finally find it. It does go down to the Queens, which are, they have plenty of transfuses. 3 more Queens even coming out as well. That is, again, a surplus of Queens combined with the Ravagers, hoping to get on top of the stack defense, hoping to find a trap that is under-defended. Is he, though? He's got a stasis trap. He, once again, has some stack defense. He is actually willing to engage, and this is so far off of creep, of course. At those Queens, you're going to find it very difficult to actually hit what they want, basically. And I don't know, this feels like it's already not going to work. Actually, Trap deciding, yeah, it's not working, engages on top of the Queens, hoping to find them a little bit alone, but the rest of the army is still there.
I'm not sure about this for Trap. Like, finding away from shield batteries, I know his army's pretty good and he's not going to die anytime soon, but if Reynor keeps his units alive, like, he had a huge amount of minerals that he just spent on 13 drones. He's making a 4th, he's going for Infestation Pit. Yeah, he committed, but like, he kept his opponent honest almost, but I love the way that Trap's reading the game too, seeing the back off, because he's producing a 4th base. Reynor, though, oh my goodness, this is some Sixth Sense kind of play. Like, he kind of knew, oh my goodness, you're playing too clean, too passively, what's up here? And he finds out this base is going on here.
Unfortunately, the army that Reynor has isn't the best at trying to dual attack right now, but he is trying. So Roaches and Ravagers do come forward to start knocking on the front door of the natural while Trap's entire army went off to the left side. But it's not too far away. A warp-in happens. Reynor just going to take the gateways and escape. And I guess just try and keep that forward position so he can engage when he wants and disengage when he wants as well, buying himself the max amount of time to get up to that hive, add on that Hydralisk Den, add on his upgrades. But it does feel kind of similar to last game. I mean, this time Reynor didn't commit a lot of forces, so he didn't have to replace them either. But Trap has figured this out, as you were saying, and has just gotten his 4th base up again. Still has the Storm, the faster upgrades, and heck is actually even already moving on to a Stargate. He has really identified that this game is going to be going on a while longer.
Yeah, certainly has. Like, Blink is on the way again for Trap. He's getting that 4th base up and going again. But Reynor is going for something totally different here. Like, we can't forget, he went up to like 86 drones. He's at 84 currently, just made a few buildings. But that is a huge economy for him. Getting out the Hydras as well, along with the Lurker Den. His army's going to be quite a bit different. Obviously, Roach heavy and yet again, but yeah, this is going to pack a real punch. This is nice shutdown play by Trap, realizing that the Nidus is still a threat, though.
So we got the Nidus Swarm, but yeah, we also get our mid to late game PvZ. So it's like the best of both worlds. I love it.
It certainly is, certainly is. You know, Lurkers in the hands of Reynor, because I feel... So I'm a Terran player, obviously, right? Like, I do feel that he was the guy that definitely popularized Lurkers in ZVT. So I'm looking to see what he can make happen in this matchup. He's getting a 2nd Evo, which is undoubtedly going to be for upgrades. He's on 4 bases, taking his 5th as well. Quite a lot of creep in the center of the map as well. Just have to be careful, though, because Trap, he is caught up in supply.
He's looking around, temporarily paused to deal with a Nidus Worm. 2 Zealots, not only harassing a 5th base, but also checking to see the reaction, how much army goes over to respond. Just a handful of Roaches. The Hydras are turning into Lurkers right now. The Ravagers both on the left side, prepared for Trap's attack, which I'm not sure how committed he's going to be with this. There is no Warp Prism quite yet. I know it's coming around somewhere, but he just wants to take what he can get, and he can always run away thanks to the Storms, a couple of Force Fields as well. And those Lurkers do not have their upgrades yet, so they can't really chase as well as they might.
I was about to ask, where are all these spine crawlers that Reynor's making? Like, I saw 10 in production about a minute ago, another 7 in production, so super duper turtly. And whenever you play like this as a Zerg, you're kind of almost anticipating that the Protoss is going to counter-attack you when you finally do go. And yeah, that looks like what Reynor's kind of hoping for here, splitting his army into 2 groups, getting mobile Lurkers going, getting armor upgrades for the Zerg army as well. So no commitment to Zerglings at all or anything melee, just full-on range units.
Trap is going into triple Disruptor production, +1 flyer as well as he moves on into a Fleet Beacon. This is really awkward though. A lot of High Templars getting caught by those Lings near the Lurkers, which actually Trap decides that maybe he can engage with, but not realizing perhaps that there is an attack over to the right side as well. One Disruptor not going to get a shot, and the Immortals, also having lost their shields, are not holding up against the Roaches like they usually would.
No, and the Void Rays, the only thing that can stick around here, does cancel that Prismatic to dodge the Bile. So nice play by Trap there, but man, that pounce by Reynor and that little trap that he set for Trap, that was beautiful. Oh, these Disruptor shots! Kind of juicy, honestly, kind of juicy, but that's a lot of Queens to keep the army alive.
Yes, it is. You're going to require 2 Disruptor shots to actually kill a Lurker, so those transfuses could be absolutely huge. Trap still working on some upgrades. Also has a very important run by to try and distract Reynor, but the Hydras are already there intercepting it, so that doesn't seem to be going so hot. No, none at all. And Reynor isn't just dedicating to the attack. Again, he is looking back at home, getting his upgrades, getting into some Vipers, a Spire on the way, as the Zealots are finally and totally cleaned up. Queens are found out a bit awkwardly. Losing their supply isn't the worst thing in the world for Reynor. Maybe not all of them at once like this, though.
No, I was just thinking, because, I mean, they're great tanks, right? But just trading them out for pretty much nothing, that's a bit ballsy by him. But this 4th base by Trap, totally exposed, and Trap move commanding into the army. Oh, no. Disaster.
He had no idea. He didn't realize. And Jagannatha has some really, really brutal pathing sometimes. And that absolutely has taken Trap's chances in this game down to like, 10% maybe. He is down 70 supply, still has some Disruptors, but he has lost his 4th, lost 27 probes, is up against a Reynor who is just in full force right now. He's got Vipers, Lurkers, Abducts going down left and right, and Trap now going down below 100 supply. Not quite thanks to the 3 carriers, I suppose, but his supply does not look good.
What a different game here. Even though the openings were very, very similar, the outcome totally different. Reynor fixing the play, fixing the mistakes he made in game one and playing an absolutely perfect game here against Trap. And look, how many spine crawlers have been made as well? Like, he predicted this game beautifully, did Reynor. He wanted to be aggressive, he wanted to rely on Trap, trying to get the counter-attack damage done. 15 spines on the map, and Trap touching his head, touching his beautiful bird nest of a haircut. And yes, he doesn't know what to do at this point in time. Big disruptor shots trying to go off, and they do sort of, but so much Reynor.
Way too much Reynor as he brings the series back to a 1-1 score. Very happy about that. He knows that he has it in him to defeat Trap and just had to show it. Finally was able to do so. I mean, I want to give a lot of kudos to Reynor and how he played out that game, but it also was Trap just being a little befuddled in the middle of Jagannatha. That map kind of turned on him, didn't it?
Yeah, I'm glad you point that out, because like in the space of 20 seconds, not only did he lose a base with like 20 odd probes mining from it, but that army like moved commanders right into Reynor's army, got surrounded, and from being at like 190 supply against 200, it was then 200 supply against 120 all of a sudden. So yeah, Trap absolutely blundered that one, caught with his pants down. Reynor just outmaneuvered him, and we talk about the young kid's speed, but that was just that, right? Like he pounced on a base, pounced on the army. Both situations went totally his way without any losses. And yeah, the Trap that I'm seeing on camera right now, that's how I imagined him feeling, actually.
Yeah, that's I mean, that just was not a terrible setup for him. You know, that was one of those games where you're pretty happy with how you played against the first, 8 minutes, something like that. And then you're like, yeah, this is going great. I'm reading this correctly. I'm moving on into the Sky Toss, which I know every Zerg is kind of terrified of right now. And then before you really get there safely, suddenly, your units just aren't really responding the way that you want. It's like disconnected from your hands, right? Because the AI is not working on the map like you would want. And then it plummets down from there. Feels really bad actually to lose a game like that. But for Reynor fans and Reynor himself, obviously he feels pretty good. I guess he got more what he wanted from the Nidus Worm, perhaps. Maybe this is a way that he's just opening up against Protoss players so he can kind of control the flow of the game a bit more.
Yeah, it's really one of those openings that I know I said it, that I'm really happy they're both doing the exact same thing again, because that's really where Reynor will make the changes. Not necessarily Trap, because what he did worked. And if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But I want to see where Reynor changed everything. And he immediately transitioned. He realized what damage he did. And it wasn't direct damage, is indirect damage, right? He kept his opponent clean and honest. He was already droning like a madman behind it, went up to like 80 plus drones, with the all-in still kind of being shown to Trap. Trap tried to take fourth base, it was cancelled. It was just a totally different response afterwards from Reynor, which, yeah, I don't know whether he's got like the calculations in his head of what he needs to do and show to make the Protoss like overreact, but if he's shown this to Trap twice in a row with two very different follow-ups, and he's kind of playing with Trap at this point, and that's going to be very scary for Trap moving on in the third game.
Do you think does Trap do anything in anticipation of this Nidus Worm to change things up?
I mean, Nidus has always been a scary opening for Protoss, right? Like, if you don't go Void Rays, if you don't go Air, what do you go? Do you go for a bigger commitment? I mean, I feel that attack from Reynor is kind of made to deal with the big Stargate play, so no, you can't go like even harder commitment. If you do want to go Stargate and you're going for that and you go for the ground army, well, Reynor's just shown that you have to respect it, otherwise you can potentially... In fact, Reynor is showing that you can't really die to it, so maybe Trap just plays more greedy if he goes to... I don't know. I mean...
Yeah. I know. I understand the pauses. Yeah, it's kind of difficult, because I'm thinking also like, well, what if he does something earlier on to actually bring the action over to Reynor's side of the map? Well, Reynor is still getting a Roach Warren at a safe time. He's not using it until he's ready to hit with a Nidus Worm, but he's getting it at a safe time. So if Reynor is doing, I guess, his scouting and his lings, positioned well and seeing that something is off, maybe it's not a Stargate that automatically is going to alert the Zerg that something is up, then he could defend something that Trap could throw at him earlier on too. So perhaps the best thing to do for Trap is in fact, mentally prepare for the Nidus Worm, execute your build, and then try your best to, actually play out the rest of the game beyond that as perfectly as possible, which he kind of got close to doing, but just, a lot of miscontrolled units in the mid game.
Yeah, I mean, let's be real. It's not as if Trap was in like a super bad position that game. It was definitely that little blip. He was caught off guard. A base went down, his army, well, half his army went down. So I'm you know, he's a far better Protoss than I'll ever be. I trust him. Anyhow, spawning over in the top right, as that blue Zerg on Pillars of Gold, it is Clash's Reynor.
In the bottom left as the... Oops-a-daisy. Of course, we have to show Reynor. Looking super intent. In the bottom left as the red Protoss for team Freak of Freaks, he is Trap.
That is a very early probe from him again, so obviously going for the natural block. And on this map, it's even easier to do because you mine less minerals from your main base. And Reynor, we do see it, 15 hatch, but the probe turned up just in time anyhow. So that 15 hatch attempt was fumbled a little bit. So if you do look at this and you're like, okay, who's this maybe a little bit better for? Well, Reynor's, you know, adjusting. I didn't see any tilt from him in the camera, but that is definitely a nice little start for Trap there.
Yeah, as I said last game, probably something that Zerg players are just all very used to. Just like, yeah, be nice, but all right, you do you, Protoss. You be like that.
Actually, you know when you play off races and things like that happen to you? When it happens to me when I'm playing Zerg, I'm like, oh, damn it, I hate this. Like, I'm already dead. You know, like typical StarCraft player. But yeah, these guys, I mean, if it happens to you literally every game almost, you got to have your plan B. And I mean, it's not really much of a plan B if it's pretty much your plan A at this point with how much you do get blocked.
For me, I go with the classic. If I do it, it's great, it's fantastic, I'm playing awesome. If my opponent does it to me, they're tryhards, they play this game too much, like, I have a life, dude. Yeah, that's the classic maneuver there. Yeah, I don't play Zerg very much, so I'm also just not... I don't empathize as well as you do to Muslim up there in the GM with all three of your races.
You have a pure heart, you do. You have a pure heart. I mean, my Protoss, like, honestly, I don't feel like a GM. I feel like a plat player with my Protoss, but I've been abusing Void Rays these days, you know? I've been Void Ray all in everybody. And it's been great, it's been great. Okay, so this game is starting off, like, near enough exactly the same. Like, we don't have that Stalker first opening by Trap this time, even though there is that Overlord just sat right above his gateway. But there is that nice pillar where he can just kind of scoot over to the right side to avoid any sort of vision there.
I feel like this is a mental thing, man. Just like literally dangling something in front of you. What you gonna do about it? Well, not much. Even if it was a Stalker, the Overlord is 100% safe. And not a Stalker, which means the Overlord could even try and go into the main base and see the Stargate as soon as possible, but it's not gonna bother.
I am curious though, like, because Trap is obviously going for the Stargate again, and even though he's been changing up which gateway units he makes and when, like, Reynor has been showcased in the exact same build against him. Like, now I'm curious as to what Trap is going to try and weasel out here, because Reynor, he has showcased that he is absolutely not scared about just kind of hammering out a lot of units and just throwing something at you, but not headbutting the wall, right? Like, I love the change that he made in that second game.
Right, actually just using it kind of keep tabs, keep Trap suspects, like, okay, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? All right, that's what you're doing, okay. You know, Reynor's build can kind of throw someone off, especially if they're already thrown off. But Trap, although he did look, you know, very disappointed in the last game on that webcam, one thing he has proven over his victories the last, 6 months or so, is that he can bring it back. You know, he might lose it. He might go from 3-0 to 3-3, but then he brings it back to 3-4, and that's totally fine, right? So not too worried about his mental state against Reynor, who can be tricky. You could do the same Nidus Worm again, but as you were saying, like, what does Trap do to change things up in anticipation of that? Does he change anything up, or is he simply going to say, Jagannatha, the map betrayed me, I hate it now, and Pillars of Gold should not have a similar scenario. It's actually a map that does not have as many chokes, ramps going everywhere, which way. It's actually a little bit more of that wide open type of map.
This Void Ray is getting quite a few Overlords, by the way. Like, is this the third Overlord for him? Oh, second Stargate. We see a mix-up. Finally. Well, that's very interesting then, because, you know, that is one thing that the Queens are very specifically going to be good against, and why they are often brought along with the Nidus Worm. So, all right, time to pay attention to if Reynor does the same build. So, to recall, he starts building Queens. He's around 66 drones, and he does the Nidus Worm, and that's what we'll be looking at. Trap, no doubt looking for that as well. He needs to make sure to keep this Oracle alive, taking a bit of hull damage unnecessarily, but it is alive. Oh, now Overlord, a transfuse on it to keep it alive as well. That's actually a big deal, because losing 3 Overlords to the Void Ray, and also the Lost Mining Time, like his Spore Crawlers, even though I gave him a lot of credit for delaying them in the previous game when his Queens were there in position, they weren't in position this time. So we had to run those guys away, and he only lost 1 drone, but it was definitely a lot of indirect damage with the lack of mining time, and we're seeing a lot of the same stuff again this time, Zombigrub. I don't know if we saw the Evo Chamber as early as this, but we'll see. We'll see.
Wasn't that'd be a Roach Warren, actually, in the previous 2 games, wasn't it?
It would. I hope it's not one of those like mistakey kind of situations, because I feel the strat that he's been doing is so good against the double Stargate. He's only scouted 1 of them so far, which isn't weird.
It's different. We got a +1 on the way, actually. I was just gonna say that if it was the Nidus Swarm again, then Trap does like going into Hello, there we go. Trap does love going into Disruptors. A very fun playstyle, a very fun follow-up, and also effective in the right hands. And he is doing that again. Robotics Bay is on the way for Trap. And then perhaps the Forge and Twilight Council. The Reynor, +1 missile, and a Spire. I was gonna say, it took a lot of gas to not have anything to really utilize that gas on yet. And there we have it, a Spire coming down.
Such a weird mix, right? Like, I'm wondering for Reynor, what does he think he's up against here? Like, if he thinks he's against the same thing, and it was kind of like the Archon charge lock, then I don't think the Spy would be that good. But against the double Stargate, like, obviously you can't go Muta, or is he going to see? If he sees a large amount of Void Rays here, that is really crucial, because now he knows what he's up against.
There you go. The Queens not expecting so many Void Rays to pop up. Don't have enough fighting force to take that on. Not allowed transfuses either, so they're forced to waddle away on creep. 1 might escape. She does. But the Void Rays did end up being a little bit of a surprise. Now the Spire, though, can be chosen. What he does with the Spire, I guess, will be more accurate now that he has more understanding what his opponent's doing. Seems like he still has certainly enough Queens to deflect this away from his 4th. And Trap not stopping making those Void Rays. Still has yet to scout the Spire. Actually, I think he just did. I think the Oracle just got back there.
I mean, it has been scooting around the inside of Reynor's base, and still alive, still trying to plant stasis here, there, and everywhere. Oh, actually, Reynor's been doing a good job of stopping. Oh, did Mappa just show us that he didn't see the Spire, actually?
Oh, he did. It was forming.
Okay.
That would have been a very big miss if the Oracle had missed that one.
Yeah, I was like, there's a stasis trap there? How on earth did that Oracle not see it? But Infestation starts up. We got Roach Speed, and 1 Corruptor starts. Immediately cancelled, though.
Okay, all right. So as the Lings keep darting around, they're not only checking out, for what the army is doing, but they're also checking what type of army is there. Still seeing additional Void Rays being included. It went from, 4 to 6 to 8. As well as perhaps actually maybe even seeing a Disruptor, I'm not sure, but that 3rd base is typically where the army starts to come together. Seems like the Disruptors have been hidden in the natural, so I mean, if I know that Trap likes the Robotics Bay follow-up, I'm sure Reynor also knows that and has that in mind, but he has changed plans. He has shifted away from Aspire. That was his first tech choice. That was something that he probably really wanted to use. He decided not to use it, even canceling that Corruptor, and we're moving on into Hive and Hydralisk Den.
Zombigrub, I am definitely... because this bank is getting pretty large. I mean, almost 2k minerals here, 1500 gas, and he took his 7th and 8th gas before taking like a 5th base, so he absolutely wants to use it for something. Hydralisk, is it going to be into infestors and stuff? I don't see the... lurkers again. Okay, because he definitely... Wait, he did... Oh my god, he is so indecisive this game. I don't think he's comfortable at all.
Yeah, I don't think he is either. There's too many things happening there, kind of weird. He at least finally uses the Bang for 19 Hydras to pop out, and then maybe eventually into some lurkers, but Trap, of course, not able to see all this indecisiveness like we do, is still respecting what Reynor could possibly have, is finally moving out a little bit. He's got a Warp Prism to reinforce. He's clearing up that creep, now sees the might of the army. It is just Queen Hydra right now. There's actually not much more here, so if the Disruptors get a couple of good hits, it could be really bad. They are going to be sharpened around for it. A bit of a concave here for Reynor to try and help out. A decent split even with Queens. And there's only 3 Disruptors. One gets a pretty good shot, though. But yeah, he's got to be careful. He doesn't know what else Reynor might have, and actually a Roach run by doing some damage.
Yeah, and this is something that Reynor can afford to get rid of, right? Like, this is definitely an efficient trade. 8 probes, sending the army back home. Now he knows what he's definitely dealing with as well, like a lot of Voids and Disruptors. Roaches are absolutely munched down there. I'm so scared for Reynor. This is so many Queens, and these Disruptors, they deal big hits, and it's not as if the Queens can move away, right?
Yeah, no, especially off of creep. They're not dodging any disruptor shots. They can take one, as we saw there, but then they use all their transfuses. A couple of Vipers come out, though, and abduct the disruptors into the army. They're still getting their shots off, however. They actually were targeted down, so two of them still got their shots. Is there enough Zerg left over? The Void Rays are starting to cut through the Queens, the Hydras. Reynor's supply not looking too bad right now, but it's because he's reinforcing with 14 Roaches. I don't think that's what you want.
I don't think so either. And I mean, obviously getting rid of the disruptors was a really good play, but I think maybe just one parasitic bomb on this air would have helped out so much, because these Void Rays, they're just going to mow down this army. The disruptors are getting shot out by the Roaches. Well, Reynor's supply, though, he's still so good here. I think Trap's overextended massively.
Yeah, absolutely. He was so confident. I mean, we were so confident about those Void Rays, you know, taking charge of the battlefield, not being countered by enough Hydras that, I mean, even Trap thought, okay, I can continue bullying him with this, but he was wrong. He loses his ground army that is very difficult to replace. He's starting to lose his Void Ray army as well. There is a decent number of them, but they've been called. Now they're very, very injured, and now Reynor is swept into building as many Hydras as he needs. And Reynor, I thought he was on the ropes there for a second, but he did absolutely fantastic. He's on 5 bases. He's got the technology, he's got the supply, and Trap is the one that's now desperate.
Certainly is. Look at that drone count as well, 86. This is Reynor's comfort zone. Anything above 80, that's where he starts to really thrive. The Hydra range upgrade, like, kind of only just started, by the way, so these Hydras aren't as good as they can be. But when you've got that many Vipers to assist, like, those Void Rays, they can't do anything anymore. Neither can the Disruptors, by the looks of it. Reynor is moving in and Trap. You can see him talking to himself. The Void Rays caught in the middle of the map as well. Or are the Hydras caught? In fact, huge fights going off outside the 4th base of Trap here. This is a crazy game.
Yeah, it is one that Trap is going to lose. This one Disruptor shot is his last chance. It does go off, but isn't killing enough, it looks like. The Vipers might also die to these last couple of Void Rays, but Reynor still has an 80 supply lead over Trap. Trap, yeah, I think he knows it as well. He doesn't really have very much else to show here. He's trying to warp in Blink Stalkers that are now going to have +2, but Reynor's been on +2 himself with the Hydras. He is the one that's actually going to be patient and pull back and not overextend. I think Trap knows that he made a mistake. If he had pulled back, played the long con, maybe he'd be doing much better. But now, again, just completely dependent on a Disruptor shot going well. And that's only because the Vipers had to go back and regain some energy.
Yeah, I love the addition of the Vipers with this army, because it totally makes the Disruptors redundant, right? Like, this Hydra army deals a lot of damage. The Disruptors, they're meant to make the Hydras move. If they don't have to move because of the abducts, then it's great. Look, the importance of those... Oh, that was really good. Feedbacks stops the abducts, means the Hydras have to move again, denying the damage, but I think it's too little too late. I mean, this is a nice little Stalker army, but... Oh! Disruptor, nice dodge by Reynor, and GG! Reynor takes out Trap, and Trap's in so much pain!
Yeah, that was a painful loss.